on one computer, and since there is feedback on my line, I'm going to turn it over to Bridget Brown, Executive Director of NAWDP. Bridget, thanks a lot for leading us through this. And we are recording, to my knowledge, so others can listen in later.
Okay. Well, I am glad to be here. As Mark said, my name is Bridget Brown. I am the Executive Director of the National Association of Workforce Development Professionals here in beautiful Washington, D.C. And I was asked just to walk you through the application process with a particular emphasis on what individuals who successfully complete the Blazing the Pathway programs need to do for the application, because it's slightly different and much more streamlined. Just a little bit about NAWDP, and since we're not all in a room, normally I would have you raise your hands to see how many individuals are already members of NAWDP, because I'm sure all of you are, or Mark will make sure that all of you are shortly. But just because, you know, contractually obligated to always talk about NAWDP in any group that I'm in, which makes me just a joy on holidays. A couple of things that NAWDP does, for those of you who may not already be members, we really work a lot. We work a lot on providing a voice to the workforce development practitioner, and that means developing policies at the national level that strengthen our programs and services. We also primarily focus on providing professional development to individuals who are in the workforce development industry. And of course, a forum where we can all join and talk about issues that are most important to us. A couple of highlights on the professional development aspect before I jump into the Certified Workforce Development Professional. Here are a couple of dates that are coming up for those of you who might be interested. We do hold monthly webinars and also face-to-face conferences and events as well. So our next webinar is actually on April the 20th, looking at summer employment programs. We have one on entrepreneurialism in May. And then I'm going to be doing one on working with ex-offenders and also some on social media later in the spring and summer. So these are just some key dates for you all to keep in mind. All right, so let me jump into what we're really here to talk about today, and that is the Certified Workforce Development Professional Credential, the CWDP. The CWDP was really established back in 1999 as a way to highlight individuals in the field who have independently met a particular level of expertise across 10 different workforce development competencies. And we're going to talk about those shortly. But we wanted it to be an independent validation. We wanted it to be portable. So if you're working in, let's say, you're in Milwaukee today, but you have an opportunity to move to Washington, D.C. or another state, that credential will carry with you. There are several credentials out there that are very state-specific, but we wanted this to really belong to the professional themselves. And of course, now that we are in this time of, you know, a little bit of economic strife and employment strife, shall we say, we know that HR managers and small companies are getting bombarded right now with individuals who want to work with them to fill their human capital needs. And the CWDP is one way to get to the head of that pack. It's telling your potential customers, be them a savvy job seeker or your business customer, that you're a step above. So it's sort of a good housekeeping seal of approval, if you will. About a year and a half ago, we actually partnered with the National Association of Workforce Boards on a survey to even find out whether organizations that hire in our field really care about credentialing of workforce professionals. We talk a lot about providing guidance to our job seekers to get ahead, to make yourself more marketable, be sure to get an industry-recognized credential. But did we ever stop to think about, well, gosh, do we really want that for ourselves? Do we have that kind of market visibility? And I have to admit, I was a little nervous when I started that survey and that research, because we had been doing them since 1999, and my goodness, what would happen if we did the survey and found out that nobody really cared? So after much wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth, we decided to go forward with it anyways. And what I did is I went out really broadly into the field, and then I cut the data. I think we had about 740 or 700 and change professionals respond to the survey. But then I cut the data. I was only really interested in the responses of people who had direct authority over hiring decisions for our professionals, promotion, bonus, or salary decisions. Because at the end of the day, we all have to pay our mortgage, and that is one indicator of whether or not this credential is important to industry, our own industry. And I won't bore you with all of the details. They are on our website if you'd like to review that. But the good news is that almost 80% of the individuals who responded to the survey with that hiring, promotion, salary, decision-making authority responded that, yes, they do value credentials for workforce development professionals. And topping the list was the Certified Workforce Development Professional credential. Others on there that you may be aware of was also the GCDF, the Global Career Facilitator credential as well. For individuals who work with businesses, they wanted folks more with a sales background than they were particularly interested in a credential. But the CWDP showed up as one of the highest or the highest credential, desired credential, when we asked them about, what happens if the workforce development professional works with adults? What about youth? What if they're a manager? What if they work with business and employers? So we were very pleased to find out that the CWDP really did matter when organizations are hiring or promoting our own professionals. All right, so what are we really looking at? When we are going through the application, we're taking a look at the things that are on the screen here. Do you have a professional affiliation? Are you have your references? Do you meet the minimum education experience? And of course, those important competencies in those 10 different areas, all of which is in the application. What's not in the application, we are also looking at your ability to communicate using proper grammar and punctuation. Can you write? Can you communicate? Do you use appropriate spelling, grammar, punctuation? And can you follow directions? The majority of individuals, well, a good amount of individuals who are not successful first time out with their application, they're not following directions. And I'm going to go through some of those helpful hints later on in this presentation. So, we're taking a look what's in there, but we're also expecting you to have a level of professionalism when it comes to providing us with the information that we're asking. Let's take the easiest one first, and that is, before you even want to apply, you want to find out whether or not you meet the definition of a workforce development professional. This is a credential for workforce professionals, so obviously that's going to be one of the litmus tests. We took an entire paragraph to say what we could have said in, a short phrase, which is, do you work with job seekers, or do you work with employers with their human capital needs? Those are the two things that we're looking at. We're not interested necessarily in how you're funded at this point, whether you're funded under the Workforce Investment Act, you're funded through a Second Chance Act, state funding. This is not a career one-stop specific credential. This is a broader credential for anyone who is in the workforce development system, including individuals who are employed by some of our larger employers in their HR department. So first thing you want to do, and I'm assuming that if you are in the Blazing the Pathways program, that you're already a workforce development professional. So let's assume you've already met this first requirement. And then I'm going to take the easiest aspects of the application first. One of the things that we're going to require is that you have references. 2 references are required, one of whom must be an immediate supervisor. There is no getting around this. One must be an immediate supervisor. The other one can be whomever you would like it to be. Just make sure that that individual has enough knowledge of your competency in order to fill out the reference form that's in there. And do not forget to sign the reference form. This is one of the reasons that some applications get rejected. There's a place on many of these forms for the applicant's signature. No signature, no acceptance. Kind of goes back to do they follow the rules and what the instructions requirement. A couple of helpful hints. You would think that references would be one of the easiest things to click off your to-do list, but not always. Keep in mind that the individual who's filling out your reference may not be under the same time constraints as you are, and just because you have a deadline doesn't mean that they recognize that deadline. So I recommend that you start early and you follow up with them. If your application gets to me and there is no reference in there, your application is not moving forward until I have that reference. So keep on top of whomever it is that is completing that. You can have them send it in early, you can have them send it in late, or you can send it in with your application. Just get it from your reference in a sealed envelope, and you can just toss it in with the rest of your application so that you know it's gotten here. And I'm going to alert you throughout the process if there's some pieces missing in your application. But many times I see applications get held up on a technicality because somebody didn't fill out the right paperwork by the time it needed to be filled out. So that's pretty straightforward. Do you have a professional affiliation? You know, basically, are you an individual member in an organization for workforce development professionals that provides professional development? It's kind of a long way of saying it here. Apparently, we're getting very wordy when we were filling this out. You can fulfill this requirement by being a member of NAWDP, of course, but that is not a requirement. There are a lot of fine national, state, regional organizations that are out there that you may already be a member of. Organizations like, let's say, the National Career Development Association will accept. If you're in California and we're a member of the California Workforce Association, of course I would accept that. If you're in the Southeast and a member of the Southeast Education and Training Association, that would be fine. But of course, if you're a member of NAWDP, that automatically meets this as well. If you're not a member of NAWDP, when you're applying for your application, you can apply for your CWDP and your membership at the same time. It's a very common thing, and you do get a price break when you do that. So there's a part in the application where it asks you, what is your professional affiliation? You would just put NAWDP membership number pending, and then fill out the application for membership that's already included in the application, and you'll be good to go. I always process the membership application first. That way I can say, yep, Bridget is a member of NAWDP. Her application can go forward. I'm going to stop for just a second to see if there are any questions. I don't know if people are typing them in or have the ability to verbally voice them. But if there's any questions as I'm going through this, please don't hesitate to let me know.
Bridget, I think this is Mark, and that one of our folks in Racine may be trying to get in a question here.
Okay.
Jasmine, are you, can we hear you, or can you write in?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't actually have a question at the moment, but I just wasn't sure if everything was working. At first we didn't have audio, so that's kind of where you got the "we were muted" question from.
Okay.
I do apologize for that, but now we have audio.
Okay.
Well, Jasmine, people have been trying to get me to be quiet for years, so that's probably what it was.
Oh, well, I like listening to what you have to say.
This is, star pupil. Thanks, Jasmine. And you're with a few others there?
Yes, I have Teresa Love with me and Sam Pena.
Terrific. And I know at least a couple of others are online elsewhere, and some will tune into the recording. So, yeah, type in or speak up if you have questions. That's great.
Thanks
Thanks,
you.
Bridget.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll keep going until Mark or someone else tells me to stop. The next litmus test you want to take a look at is, do you even have the minimum education and experience requirement to apply? If you don't have this, then you don't even want to try to fill out the application. And as you can see on the slide, it's a sliding scale. The higher your education attainment, the lower the amount of months of full-time workforce development experience you need to have. And it is the highest degree that has attained. So if you are working on your master's but has not conveyed, you have to use the months that are associated with the bachelor's degree. That's a question I get often. So you've got the basic sliding scale there, but then NAWDP requires one more element on this, and that is part of your experience has to be recent experience. And that's where you get into that, you see it in red there, the 12 months within the last 24 months. So if you've been in the field for 10 years, you won a small lottery prize, went and sailed around the Caribbean for several years, and are just coming back in to the field, you will still have to have that 12-month experience within the last 24. And that's really because the industry is changing so quickly. The demands of the employers, the demands of the job seekers, the background and diversity of the job seekers that are coming through our doors, whether you're at a faith and community-based organization, a workforce investment board, or a one-stop, they're just very different. And for those of you who've been in the field for a while, I think that you would probably agree with me that the world's just changing. Our world, at any rate, is changing at a very rapid pace. So we want to make sure that part of your experience is recent experience so that we're not putting you out and saying, yes, this person has met this level of competency, but you're not prepared to deal with today's reality.
Excuse me, I have a question now.
Is that Jasmine?
Okay, I am new to this current job capacity. However, I have a master's degree and I worked for 3 years as a case manager for Upward Bound. Would that count as workforce development experience?
It could. How's that for a gray area?
Okay.
The months of experience do not necessarily mean that you have to be with one employer.
Okay.
On the Upward Bound or Outward Bound or any other job that you may have had, it would all depend on what you did.
Okay.
So if at least 30 hours a week of that job was doing things related to workforce development, whether you were doing career assessments, doing life and job training skills, employability skills, those sort of, if it was 30 hours a week or more, absolutely that counts.
How do you quantify that?
Very good question. And I'm probably going to, I'm just looking at my slides. No, we don't have another slide on here. I'm going to tell you. Here's how you're going to do it. It's going to be in the next slide. I'm going to tell you exactly how to quantify that.
No problem.
So hold your question. But yes, again, and I may have just sort of glossed over this at the beginning, it's not where you work or what your job title is. It's what you do. And there's a place in the application where we're going to ask you about that.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other general questions about the month and the experience requirements before I tell you how you're going to document that? Okay, I'm going to move forward, but if you need me to come back on this, don't hesitate to ask. In the application, Jasmine and others, we've got forms that have forms. I guess we really like forms. There's a form called Applicant's Description of Experience as a Workforce Development Professional. That's a mouthful. What that form is, it's asking you what your job title was, who was your employer, and what was the period of time that you were employed. Let's say that I had been working at Upward Bound of, I don't know, Milwaukee. My knowledge of Wisconsin is very limited, so everything's going to be Milwaukee today, with maybe a few Madisons thrown in there. And I would put the dates that I was there. Then there is another question. and it's asking you to tell us what were the general workforce development related duties that you're performing. So where did you work? How long did you work there? What was your title? And what were the workforce development responsibilities of that position? That's where you're going to put that information, Jasmine.
Thank you.
A couple of helpful hints on this. Many people neglect to answer that last question, that detailed description of workforce development related duties. If you don't answer it, your application will be rejected. We use that information to track it back to that previous slide to make sure that you've got the months of experience. That's one of the ways that we do that, so it's really important. And what we have found out is that titles are pretty meaningless. Every state, every organization has their own methodology when it comes to titles. In some states, what you and I may consider a caseworker is technician level 2. Well, I have no idea what a technician level 2 is unless you tell me what it is.
Okay.
Some organizations, your receptionist does all of your intake. Others, the receptionist answers the phone and greets people when they come in. So that's one of the reasons we're asking for that detailed description. There's not a lot of room on that form, and the document is in a Word document format. So if you find that there's not enough room, you can attach an addendum. It's not a problem. It's better to give us more information than not enough.
Thank you.
Sure, but I'm not done yet. So there's another form. It's called the experience form. This is a form that is going to be completed by your employer. And what this is, it's verifying the information that you gave us on your applicant's description. So if you're working for ABC organization and you put, I work for ABC organization from January of 2011 until August of 2011, we're going to want to see an experience form from ABC organization signed off that verifies those dates. And the other question that it asks is make sure that these are the workforce development responsibilities at least 30 hours a week. So if you have a big job, but you only do workforce development maybe 10 hours of that week, that's not going to qualify. A couple of helpful hints on this one. Similar to the experience form, don't forget to sign it. And also, because it's being filled out by someone other than you, don't assume, again, that they are as attentive to deadlines as you are. So you're going to want to start early, even if it's literally walking it over to the personnel office, standing there and saying, I'm not leaving until you fill this out, because I want it to go with my application when I submit it. One other helpful hint on this, and this has come up before, make sure that the dates in your title match on both forms. So if you said you were a case manager at ABC Corporation, the experience form has to verify that you were a case manager at ABC Corporation. If you said that you worked there from January to March, the experience form has to say January to March. If there is any discrepancy, then that tells us your employer is not verifying what you've told us, and your application is going to be rejected. This is where attention to detail really comes in. And again, this is just verifying your experience as a workforce development professional, how many months you had. So it's a really important form. All right, so any questions on the basic paperwork before I jump to the next area? All right, so the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about the competencies that this credential covers. I'm going to give you what they are, but I'm also going to tell you what it is that you're looking for the application and how, if you're successful with this class, the certificate program, you can streamline this application. So I'm going to give you the long story, and then I'm going to tell you how to streamline it for you. All right, so there are 10 different areas excuse me, it's allergy season. There are 10 different areas of competency that the CWDP measures, and those are up on your screen. These were identified by doing a job analysis. It wasn't, a bunch of educators sitting in a room using a DACOM process, which is great for curriculum, but not so great for credentials. So these are the areas that it was determined that whether you worked in a faith-based organization, a Career One-Stop, a TANF office, if you were working with job seekers or with employers, these were things that everybody needed. And some of them have some unique, if you will, definitions, and the definitions are included in the application. I won't read them to you here. And I know that in this particular course that you're taking, these are all included in your coursework. If you were not taking this course or not successful at the end of this course, this is what you would need to do. You would need to fill out something called the competency rating form. That's why I kind of have that traditional part in there. There's a form in there. You would rank yourself a 1 to 4 level of expertise. 4, you can leap tall buildings with a single bound. 1, you probably have a pulse on each of those 10 areas. Then you're going to tell us how and where you obtained a competency. You're not going to tell me how you use the competency. You're not going to describe how important the competency is. And for goodness sake, do not redefine the competency for us. We know all this. What we're looking for is how and where you obtain the competency. So things like courses like this one, webinars, in-services, readings, orientations. And you're going to do that for each of those 10 areas. If there is one area on the application that causes the overwhelming majority of applications to be rejected, it's this area. They either do not articulate how and where they did it, or they simply don't have enough background to say that they're competent. I typically tell people to start with bullet points, and again, if you don't have enough room, you can always attach an addendum. All right, so this is the long way of doing it. However, because you're a part of this certificate course at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, you have a much easier process. University of Wisconsin-Parkside applied for what we call reciprocity, which means that if you successfully complete this course, we will automatically accept your completion as meeting the competency. And we can do that because Mark and his group, when they created the curriculum for this and allowed us to review it, they made sure that all of those 10 competency areas were incorporated into the coursework that you're taking right now, in your discussion groups, in your online chats, in the actual curriculum itself. So we had an opportunity to review that curriculum, and we understand and we accept the fact that not only does he cover it, but he covers it in enough depth that we will accept it. So what that means for you is rather than having to worry about filling out that long, tedious part of the application, you're going to take your transcript, or I think you get a certificate. Mark, they get a certificate, don't they?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You're going to take a certificate. You're going to copy that, make me a photocopy of that certificate, and you're going to attach it to that form, and that's all you're going to have to do. And we have only approved now 3 courses to meet the reciprocity. If you have taken the Dynamic Works course certificate, you could have done that. Course to University of Wisconsin-Parkside, this program can do it. And then last month we just approved a 3rd one out of University of California, San Diego. So this is going to make your life fabulous. You don't have to fill out the form, you don't have to pull out your hair, and life is good. And also, you get a discount on your application fee, which I'll cover in just a second. So again, it's pretty straightforward. You're filling out the entire application just like you would normally. But in this portion of it, the competency rating form, where we're asking you to prove to us, if you will, that you have a sufficient level of competency in those 10 different areas, You do not need to fill out your form. You simply provide proof that you successfully completed the certificate course. Make sense?
Yeah.
I can see heads nodding.
I
right.
I heard an amen from Sam, which means we're in good shape.
You love it when you get the amens.
That's right.
All right, just a little handy-dandy checklist. There are a lot of pieces and parts to this application, and it can get confusing. So there's a couple of check marks. Make sure you've completed the form. In your case, the competency rating form, that second check mark, you're going to attach a copy of your certificate that you get from Mark and his group. On your education, you have to either give me a transcript or a copy of your diploma. We are going to ask for verification on documenting your educational level. One thing on a transcript, and I realize that a lot of us do not have a diploma sitting around at home. In my case, my dog truly did eat my diploma. I kid you not. And a really cute pair of red pumps. It's amazing that dog lived. But if you want to get a transcript from your institution of higher ed and you want to download it from the website, couple of things. Make sure somewhere on that transcript it says the words degree conveyed. It's great if you tell me what coursework you took, but if that transcript does not confirm that that degree, bachelor's, associate's, master's, whatever it might be, was actually conveyed, it's not going to verify your education experience. Also, I have found out, as have some of the applicants, sometimes when you download your transcript off of a website, it does not include any identifying information about the institution. No logo, nothing. So it almost looks as a blank piece of paper where somebody's typed a whole bunch of courses and letters and grades in. We're not going to accept that either. We're going to have to know that this came from, you know, Ohio State University or Appalachian State University, whatever it is. So just make sure that sometimes when you print it out, the universities have it set up so that it doesn't have any identifying information on it. Just make sure it's there. I don't want you to be rejected on a technicality. And a couple of you see the other bullet points here too. Now on the payment, because I made reference to this earlier, because you're using a streamlined application process, quite frankly, it's less work for me, which means I can give you a discount. And this is included in the application as well. Rather than the normal application fee, you can take $25 off of that. And there's a place on the form for you to fill that. So not only do you save money, you also get that streamlined application process. And this checklist is also in the application as well, but it's always good to take another look at it. We do reviews 4 times a year. That's it. The next deadline that's coming up is April the 30th, and that's for a review that occurs in May, and results will be conveyed to you in mid-June. If your application is not complete, you don't have all the pieces, you don't have the reference, you don't have something, it is not moving forward. We do not, I can't stress this enough, do not accept faxes. If something needs an original signature, it needs an original signature. We are not going to accept a fax. So just keep this in mind. You probably want to know how we're reviewing it too. We have a group of CWDP reviewers who are trained, who have had the credential for more than a year, who work together to review every application. Traditionally, what will happen is your application will come to me. I will take a look at it. If there is anything missing from it, and say you had sent your references ahead or you thought you had, you're going to get an email from me. And you're going to have something that says, Dear Mark, I got your application for your CWDP. I'm finding these missing parts. This is the deadline that you need to get them to me. And then I send it off. If you send me your application and your application is complete, you're still going to get an email from me acknowledging that I got it. So it won't be one of these things where you send your application in and then wonder what happened. I'm going to keep you abreast at every point that I can. So it's reviewed by multiple committee members, and then the full committee, of course, votes on every application. Everything is sent to the applicant in writing. I cannot give you any information over the phone. And that's because I don't know that you're you. So we limit everything to writing unless I can prove that you are, in fact, you. It's a confidentiality issue and part of our own internal ethics. If your application is approved, you're going to get a letter from me saying, yay, Ra, you're approved. Here's your certificate. Here's your PIN. Here's some information about what you need to do to renew your credential in 3 years. Pretty straightforward. If you're not approved, you're still going to get a letter from me, but I'm going to tell you exactly why the application is not approved, what you need to do in order to fix the issue, and what your timeline is to do that. So I try to be really specific in my letter because, you know, it's easy to misinterpret things that are in here. So if you are not approved and you have a question about why you're not approved, once you get your letter, you can give me a call. But up to that point, I'm not going to talk on the phone to you. Everything's got to be done in writing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yay, nay?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody needs a coffee break. Okay. If also you are not approved, you do have the right to one free appeal, which 90% of the time is we need more information on XYZ or you forgot to sign this form. That's really what it comes down to. So there's a pretty straightforward process in fixing whatever could be wrong with the application. Also, the individuals who review the appeal are not the same people who reviewed your original application to the extent possible. We want to make sure that is a completely unbiased review process. But let's go positive. Let's assume that you are approved. There is a recertification process. You know, anyone who gives you a credential and there is no requirement for recertification, that credential is really not going to be worth a lot in our field because, again, this is a continuous improvement issue. With the CWDP, it is approved for 3 years. The revalidation, the recertification process is so much more simple than this application process. You know, basically you have to maintain your membership, you have to reattest to the Code of Ethics, and then you have to document at least 60 hours of professional development across the different competency areas. It doesn't have to be formal CEUs from a university, but you do need to document I attended this workshop or this webinar and on these dates and, you know, covered these competency. And there is a log that you're just going to want to log those in on, and then you send it in with your recertification fee. I will let you know about 6 weeks before your certification is due to expire, that it's about to expire, and then you'll get all of the information again on how to renew it.
Bridget?
Yes, sir.
Just a quick note, because I know a few people have had questions about this. So a good example of this sort of continuing work, for those of us who live in this region, many people attend the symposium in Chicago that you lead each year, and that would be applicable. That would be an example, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, for example, if I were to do a Washington update, which I tend to do at the youth symposium, you would say, hey, I attended the Washington update at the 2012 youth symposium, which, by the way, is November the 13th and 14th. You know, it was for 75 minutes, and it included the competency number 1, which is the history and structure of the workforce development system. But you have a lot more flexibility on the recertification. It can be, you know, reading the TGLs that are put out by the Department of Labor or from HHS on your programs. It can be a lot of different things and services your company may run.
And we're also developing here some online work towards that goal too.
Yeah, and that's an important part. We don't necessarily make a determination, good, bad, or indifferent, whether or not your professional development is face-to-face or online. You know, a lot of really great stuff is being done online, and there are a lot of different resources out there, and working adults just have to fit the one that meets their needs.
Great, thanks.
Sure. And of course, once you are certified, you are more than welcome to apply for an endorsement. We have 4 of them right there. Again, you have to have your foundational, your CWDP, before you can apply for an endorsement. And those are the 4 areas. They're pretty straightforward, whether you work with business and employers, job seekers, youth. The management service one, that's really geared more towards individuals who want to run their own career one-stop. So that's looking at becoming the grand poobah of your organization. Okay, and that was my dog and pony show, so I'm going to stop again and see if there's any questions, comments, concerns.
Jasmine has a question again. I was looking at the application for NAWDP and the application for the certification, and I know you said you get a discount at $75. Do you still have to pay an additional $75 for the NAWDP certification? Or
Okay, that's a good question. So here's what's going to happen. If you are already, there's 3 different options. If you are already a member of NAWDP, when you apply for your CWDP, the application fee is $75. For you, it would be $50 because you get the discount.
Okay.
If you are not a member of NAWDP and you want to join at the same time that you are applying for your CWDP, you would pay the $75 membership fee and the $75, or in your case, $50 CWDP application fee. If you are not a NAWDP member and you don't care to join NAWDP, we'll immediately reject your application. No, I'm kidding. There is a slightly higher fee, so it's $175.
Okay.
So you've got 3 different options. We try to give you the flexibility that you need.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, well, here's what I suggest. I know Mark's been through this before, looked at these issues before, and I think Rachel may have as well. When you successfully complete this course and you are ready to apply for the CWDP, if you have questions, my information is up on the screen right now. If Mark or Rachel or Maria or one of the other staff people can't answer it, feel free to call me or email me, and I will do my best to answer whatever questions you have in a really timely way.
Well, thank you very much, Bridget. I just a couple of closing comments. From my perspective, one, my take-home message, this was very helpful. I had not been through this webinar myself, and I think it's very helpful, and it will be good to have on our online site for others as well. To me, again, what came across today, what's come across in our other conversations, Bridget, is that this is a credential that really has some rigor and therefore also some credibility. And from what you said at the very beginning and other discussions, it's having more and more cachet in the field as employers or workforce development centers and so forth are looking to hire and or promote workforce development staff. In terms of the tips, people, and I've heard this too at my end, that people get caught up in waiting for other people for their endorsement, their letters of support, or they miss a detail in the application. So to be careful with that and give yourself enough time, I think that's a really helpful suggestion. The discount fee was a good reminder. I don't think we emphasized that in terms of the $25 off. And that this, and I don't know what percentage it is, Bridget, but somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 2/3 or 3/4 of the labor-intensive application is you get the bypass with the successful completion of our course here. So that gives you a big head start. But I think it still shines through the substance here. And so I really
appreciate this opportunity, and I really congratulate everyone for taking this course and really investing in your own skills. I think that Mark's right in that the cachet, if you will, of the CWDP is growing. We are seeing it more in job announcements. They're requiring the credential. We're seeing it more used in RFP processes, both for organizations who are replying to an RFP, but also the funding organizations factoring that in when they're scoring proposals that come in. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to get. I think that there is a perception, or had been a perception, that anyone who applied for the CWDP got it. And I can absolutely assure you that is not the case. We run anywhere from a 35 to a 55% rejection rate.
Wow.
But that rate is different, I think, for those who are going through this, because you really got the prep. And now with this, with this webinar, I think we have the whole package here fairly clear. So thanks a lot, Bridget. I know we're running into the end of our time, so the timing is great. And I see from the attendee list, since some people are grouped around computers, we have pretty much the whole group of 16, maybe missing a couple of people. So in our last in-person session, we'll touch base about the webinar, and there'll be more information online from Marie about it. But thank you very much, Bridget.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Okay. Take care, everyone. See you in a week. There'll be an email confirming in all likelihood that it's the Maximus location as opposed to UMOS, but that'll be online and in an email from me. Take care.
Hello? Oh.
You're done.